microphones, Gatiss is on stage, people! Hello. So, just to begin with the session, we have acclaimed film critique, Mr. Raja Singh also here with us. Raja Singh, and soon we'll be joined by another third eminent person. And Mr. Stephen will be joining us. So Mark, why don't you, address the crowd in the meantime? That would be really, really awesome.
How are you? Christ, there's a lot of people here. You having a good time? Pardon? What? Yes, we do, don't we? Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for having us. If this works, I'm a monkey's uncle. Your favorite show in the world? What's your other favorite show? Easy, it's a win-win. It's a win-win situation here. It's not a fight, not a fight. Oh, it's that Planet of the Apes. It's going to kick off any moment. Clever. One of them, Game of Thrones. It's nearly Christmas. Pardon? Indian food, fantastic.
Indian food, fantastic.
I can't speak for the Hard Rock Cafe though. That's not very Indian, is it?
No, I wouldn't agree with you.
I ate something that disagreed with me there, I'm afraid.
So what's your favorite Indian delicacy so far?
Wow, I can't remember. What did I have the other night? Where's Ritu? She'll tell me. I had something for the first time, it was fantastic. I love chai. I want more chai. Bring me chai. Isaac, bring me chai.
You heard the Iceman. The Iceman wants chai.
It's too cold. Yes. Why don't we start? Because this is good. Yes.
So let's begin the session. Mr. Raja Singh in conversation with the one and only Mr. Mark Gatiss. Over to you, Mark and Raja. The stage is all yours.
Maybe. Okay.
Thank you.
Raja.
Wow. Mycroft Holmes rockstar.
So it seems, yes. I think I'll form a band.
Right. But before we get to Sherlock, before we get to Mycroft, all of that, let's talk about Who.
Yes.
And, how did this come about? This reinvention of Who with you and Stephen. How did that start?
Well, no, it started with Russell T Davies. The show. I'll send that on to him. He'll be pleased. The show was taken off the air in 1989, and there was a one-off attempt to do it in America. Really, it began in 1996, and then suddenly, about in 2003, the BBC very wisely, we should be doing Doctor Who again. Jane Tranter and Lorraine Heggessy and lots of people at the BBC there. They approached Russell, and they completely, brilliantly bought into his version of the show. It used to be 4-parters and 6-parters, and he wanted to do 45-minute episodes, basically bring it into the modern age, and sort of start again, as it were. So that's why the version from 2005 that you can see here is a great place to start the show, because you see everything from the point of view of the companion. You see the TARDIS from the outside in. It's a great way of starting. So that's how it came about, and Stephen and I were lucky enough to be some of the first people asked to write for it.
What was your Who beginning? Like, what was the first Doctor Who memories for you?
Oh, my doctor was the third Doctor, John Pertwee, way back. Way back when. I was about 4 years old, and I have very vivid memories of watching his first story, where the Autons come smashing through the shop window, and I just instantly loved it. It's my favourite thing immediately. And my brother and sister used to taunt me because they could remember things from a few years before, and I used to get very excited about that. But it's always just been my favourite thing. So to be working on it now is an absolute dream come true.
When it came along, were you at all intimidated by the baggage of Doctor Who?
No, not really, because the thing is, because it was a sort of fresh start. I mean, one of the brilliant things, liberating things about Russell's approach was that it was just, you know, we all know that, but let's forget about it. You know, he created this fantastic thing which had happened off screen, where there was a time war and the Doctor was the last of the Time Lords, and suddenly it put the mystery back into Doctor Who.
Right.
And you know, we all know, we all have a version of it in our heads, but it was very exciting to be writing from scratch again, and so, you know, you can tell a story in 45 minutes like that, just really instantaneously. And in a way, I mean, this weird thing happened where Doctor Who is always famous for its cliffhangers.
Right.
And then it started, just happened by accident really, that the pre-titles became almost like the whole of episode 1 in about a minute. It sort of does the same job.
Like a Bond film.
Yes, it does, yeah. It really sort of tells us.
Hello, I can't really hear very well. Hello.
Hello, Stephen.
I like him too.
Stephen, they've kidnapped me. Help me. Help me. I'm being held against my will.
I'm very concerned because according to the press, we're married now, Matt.
That's right, yes. Again. Yes. How are you?
Hello. Is it going?
Happy Sunday morning to you.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is, isn't it? What's your first
What's
question?
that behind you, Stephen? Everyone wants to get a good look at that.
Yeah, what is that? What's that behind you? Oh my God. I hate to tell you this, but there's a TARDIS as well.
Can't hear the sound like I've lost.
That wasn't there last week. Has it?
No, it's the mini TARDIS from Flatline.
Oh, clever. Okay, first question. I'm going to relay your questions.
Hi, Stephen. We were just beginning to talk about the reinvention of Doctor Who and the way you guys went into this self-contained format. So which was the point where you felt this was really, like you really had something special here, that it wasn't just an experiment, but you really had something magical?
Did you get that? Oh, he's gone silent. Did you get that, Steve?
No.
At what point, when we worked on the first series of Doctor Who, did you think that the new format was working and we got something special?
Probably when I first read Russell's script for the very first episode, Rose, which I thought was tremendous. I mean, I kind of thought it would work the moment we got that Russell was chosen as showrunner because he's brilliant. And when I read it, I just thought this is exactly right. This is spot on. I, of course, have more or less been born believing in Doctor Who, so I couldn't imagine it not being a hit. And as you and Mark and I spent so much time talking to each other about how many great people you could get to work on Doctor Who if it came back, we coughed a lot and pointed at ourselves. I thought it was a shoo-in, and it was. But I don't know that I thought it would still be as big 10 years later. That's amazing.
Do you remember when Stephen and I first met 20 odd years ago? We used to just go to parties, get drunk, and routinely push a BBC executive into the corner and try and convince them to bring back Doctor Who. That was our hobby, wasn't it, really?
Yes, it was.
Eventually it worked, but it wasn't us. not at that point, anyway. Yeah. Go on.
What's your writing process like, the two of you, when you work in tandem or when you're trying to come up with something? Is it like, do you pass it back and forth a lot?
Well, we've just written the Sherlock special together. We'll come on to that. Which has been a lovely process, hasn't it? We've really enjoyed sort of going back and forth like that. It's a very good way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way, sort of all the scripts go a bit that way. We're always working very hard on all the scripts, but this time it was clear and explicit with each. I mean, I don't think there's now a scene in it that we both haven't had a pass at.
Yeah.
And we worked out the plot very carefully together. So actually, it was great fun. It was great fun.
I like that. We should have more fun in our lives.
Yeah, fun is
we
good.
don't have enough.
More fun. Well, I can't help it if you run away to India, husband.
I'm sorry, dear. It's amazing here, Steve, but they are keeping me against my will. I'm sending signals with my eyes. I'm blinking at you. SOS.
The definition isn't out, but I can't tell.
With a property like Doctor Who, was there a lot that was set in stone that you couldn't really change about the franchise? Were there a lot of guidelines for you?
The question is, with a property like Doctor Who, were there any things that were set in stone that we couldn't change?
I think there's quite a lot that you can't change in Doctor Who. I mean, I don't think you can never learn his name. You can never really do his backstory. The TARDIS must remain a home box. There's quite a lot. It's not so much set in stone, though. It's set in our hearts. We want it to be that way. In a curious way, it's a show that changes a lot, because you change the stars, you change all the stars, you change all the details. But the other truth is, it's exactly the same as it ever was. I think it's got a huge dynamic range between the episodes, but if you look at it from another angle, they're kind of all the same. You don't want to change it, because it's the best thing ever, apart from Sherlock.
I was asked that question today at the signing session about, someone said, do you pay a lot of attention to scientific accuracy in Doctor Who? I went, no. And I patiently explained it was about a time-traveling alien with two hearts who's 2,000 years old, who flies about in time and space in a machine that's bigger on the inside. But occasionally we do obey the rules of sort of first-year chemistry, yes. And the moon's an egg, who knew?
Yes, well I did, I always expected it.
When you pick a new Doctor, when, like Peter Capaldi this time, how is that, what do you set out to look for?
They've all seen him illegally, Stephen. I don't know why I'm here.
Lock the doors, round them all up.
Yeah, go on.
When you cast someone like that, what is it you're looking for? What are the attributes for a new Doctor?
Well, I would say, Russell cast Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant, and Stephen's cast Matt Smith and now Peter Capaldi, and I think everybody is always, throughout the history of the program, they're looking for the right person to walk into the room, really.
Yeah.
Go on, Steve, elaborate.
I think when casting goes right, the actor tells you they're right for the part. It's I've
tried that a lot. It never works for me. No,
not literally. Walking in and saying it doesn't work. But it's. Anyone who's seen Matt Smith's edition would have cast Matt Smith. I think at the moment where the rumour got out about Peter Capaldi, the whole world seemed to agree that was exactly the right choice, and then very politely pretend to be surprised a week later. So choosing somebody is kind of easy because you're choosing a star, and a star is the easiest thing to spot.
It was odd, wasn't it, with Peter? There was a kind of you asked me about 18 months ago, and I said, oh, Peter Capaldi, and you said he's top of my list. And then everybody just seemed to go, yeah? It was just like, it was a bit like, like sometimes there's like 5 James Bonds you could cast, and sometimes there's just an obvious person. It was a bit like that, wasn't it? It was just like...
It was. I mean, when I first thought of it, I thought there would be some level of resistance, because we were aging him up 30 years. He was known for another role. He was different from the image that we sort of settled on for the modern Doctor. But everybody just sort of shrugged and agreed. So the time of Capaldi had just come. That just happens sometimes. Everybody wanted him as the Doctor, and it happened. We've sort of forgotten that with David Tennant, everybody guessed it was going to be David too, because he'd just done Casanova. And everybody said, well, obviously he's going to be Chris's replacement. And it was, again, another non-news story when it was announced, because everybody kind of figured it out.
A big non-news story. Yeah, but
Sorry?
it's a big non-news story. That was
Yeah, yes, a very big one.
What are the Doctor Who moments you're proudest of as a team?
Gosh. Well, I mean, I would, for me, just being asked originally was amazing. It's the best Christmas present I ever got. Christmas of 2003, and Russell rang me up and asked me to write for the show, and actually, you know, seeing it being made and then being in it. But it's a kind of, Doctor Who is a program about moments, isn't it? It's about, you remember certain things. I mean, people come up to us now, because the show's nearly 10 years old, and they talk to you about programs that they watched when they were small, and now it's frightening, of course, they're growing up. But they remember those things, those, you know, the gas mask child, or the old lady in The Unquiet Dead, or something like that. And it's exciting, because those are the things we used to talk about when we were kids. The one with the spiders, the one with the sea devils, you know, it's got that kind of feel to it, which is fantastic. He's just not...
Yeah, my kid said to me a couple of years ago, we're watching one of the old Doctor Who's, and I was very proud, and I was wondering which Patrick Troughton or John Pertwee they were watching. I went through to find they were watching The Girl in the Fireplace.
Ancient history.
Ancient history. It's in black and white. One of the episodes is missing.
So, but, you know, just having done Who, was it easier to take on a project like Sherlock? I mean, the very idea of someone that revered, you know.
They quite like Sherlock here, Steve. That's why they're holding me against my will. No, it wasn't.
I'll negotiate with them later.
The thing about Sherlock was it wasn't in any sense like a kind of what do we do next cynical kind of thing, or a committee thing. It came about because Steve and I were always on the train for Doctor Who, and we talked about how much we love Sherlock Holmes, and this idea just came to us of updating it, and it was in every sense a passion project. And when we took it to the BBC, they just went, yeah, really. So it wasn't intimidating in that way. We had a very small bit of resistance to the idea of modernising it, but as soon as everybody saw it, they completely gave into it. It's partly to do with my mental powers. And if I concentrate, my eyes go green and I can take over everyone's brain. But it was very straightforward, wasn't it? You know,
yes, it was.
We'll never have a pitch like that again. That was too good.
No. The glory days are over.
I have to ask, whose idea was it to give Watson the blog? Because that's really the point. That's such a brilliant point where the update becomes so clear. You know, that's the point you realize that this is not...
Well, we went to the Criterion restaurant where Sherlock and Stamford meet in the original stories to just thrash out the initial things. And we were talking all the time about equivalence. You know, Sherlock is a young man in this version. He wouldn't smoke a pipe, so we came up with the nicotine patches. And some of them are just sort of funny, direct equivalences. The telegrams became text, something like that. And then we were talking about Dr. Watson's writing for the Strand magazine. I said, oh, he should be a blog. That's what it's a blog. And it's like, it became exciting, didn't it? It was like, there are direct parallels. Weirdly, weirdly more so than there would have been about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There are things that have become slightly more neo-Victorian. We weren't sending texts, but now they're just like telegrams now. And the blog is a constant way of someone updating their life. So it's a similar thing, isn't it, strangely?
When creating this version of Watson, it's very different from other versions in that he is a bewildered man, often awestruck by Sherlock, but he is also very much his equal, and he's not there for comic relief, or he's not his dog's body even. So was this always a conscious decision to make this a two-man job?
Could you get that? The question is about making John basically a much more of a co-lead, and not just the comic relief, and very much his own man.
Well, it's in every successful Holmes and Watson partnership, they are equal. Nigel Bruce may be a comedy Dr. Watson, but he's every bit as important as Basil Rathbone, and every bit as irreplaceable in those series. And when you read the original stories, Dr. Watson's got the bigger part. He never stops talking because he tells the story. Sherlock Holmes is unbearably boring and priggish unless Dr. Watson is there to make him redeemable. You always see Sherlock Holmes through the eyes of someone who adores him. If Lestrade were telling you the story, it would be the story of a pompous, posh bastard that you couldn't stand.
It's the behind the scenes.
Yes.
No, it was very important to us that we saw it as a co-lead. And once we cast Benedict, getting someone to be his Watson was obviously vital. But as soon as Martin and Benedict read together, Stephen leant over and said, "There's the show." It's true. It was just obvious to us. But it's, he's a very rounded character. He's a soldier. He's a doctor. He's a very able man. And one of the things we talked about a lot is that Sherlock, only an idiot would surround himself with idiots.
Right.
But as far as Sherlock's concerned, everybody is an idiot. It's just some of them he's more fond of.
Sure. Is that a helpful thing when you're writing as well, when you're doing a co-lead, characters who bounce stuff off each other? Are you writing like that? Are you writing as people who are, together?
The question is it helpful to have someone to bounce off?
No, when you've created a co-lead like that.
We have people have been asking whether we have a Holmes and Watson relationship, and I eventually... No. Not that one. I eventually decided that we were like Mrs. Hudson and Anderson or something. I just chose other characters at random, just to try and take the curse off it somehow.
Yeah.
No, but it's fantastic because, sometimes we always say that the most exciting part for us is when we meet up to talk about what we're going to do with the next 3 episodes, and we just sort of throw ideas against the wall and get terribly excited. And sometimes people look at us as if we've gone mad, because it's like we're speaking our own language, like twins or something. We just start babbling about certain things we could put in for the original stories and stuff like that. And it's just really thrilling. And we mapped out essentially series 4 and 5. Not of Sherlock. While we were filming series 3, and it was a brilliant afternoon, wasn't it? We just got very excited at the possibilities.
What's really fascinating is that while you have updated it, but there are so many period adaptations, with the horse-drawn carriages and everything, but your show is so much more reverential to the original text. You really seem to follow it with a lot of passion. That's...
Raj's question is about being reverential to the text, but it's not really reverence. It is passion, isn't it? It's we love it and it's in our blood, but it's not about being. In fact, I think some versions go wrong when they revere it too much.
Right.
Conan Doyle didn't give a monkey's about it, which is kind of why it's got so much fun in it, and we love it to death. But we don't treat it like a sort of holy thing. Otherwise, it just becomes a bit dull, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much genuinely good stuff in there. It's not simply a matter of treating it like holy writ. It's sort of mining it for all the stuff that people don't know is good about Sherlock Holmes. Very often the more serious attempts take all humour out. There's a lot of very funny stuff in Sherlock Holmes, and a lot of the stuff that people credit us with is in the original. Things like the first glimpse of Sherlock Holmes beating a corpse with a riding crop, the fact that he refers him to himself as a consultant detective. We got the credit for that. They're both from the original. So there's so much stuff to get out of there, so much brilliant stuff.
I remember someone saying to me, I was very clever at making Dr. Watson an Afghan veteran. I went, have you read Sherlock Holmes? That's where it's from. That was the original idea, came from there.
Was just curious, but was the Billy Wilder film an influence at all? The Private Life?
The Billy Wilder film is along with the Basil Rathbone films, is our primary influence. It's if you haven't seen it, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, absolute masterpiece. And everything about that film, it's just how to do it, isn't it? In fact, a couple of years ago, I screened it at a literary festival, and Stephen came along, and I gave this speech beforehand saying about how melancholy and beautiful and charming the film was, and nobody in the room had seen it. And then we started screening it, and I suddenly thought, oh Christ, it's incredibly funny. And it was so exciting, wasn't it? People were just laughing and laughing and laughing, and so much of the sort of relationship between Sherlock and John and the whole flavour of it is from that film. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah,
really.
The camaraderie, the back and forth is
brilliant,
really,
isn't it?
It seems like.
Yeah, and we must have both seen it when we were both about 8 or 9, and it left a very indelible mark.
Yeah, it's if you like Sherlock, you will love that film. It's so much of it. It's probably the wittiest Sherlock Holmes script ever written, and it's got a wonderful Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson and Robert Stevens and Colin Blakely. If you like our show, you will definitely love that, and you will recognise quite a few elements that we drew from it. The way we portray Mark as Mycroft is very much from that film. A lot of A Scandal in Belgravia follows the beats of the plot. It's a wonderful piece of work, and you are missing a treat if you haven't seen it.
That's your Christmas present, sort of.
When, again, casting, when picking Sherlock, so I would like you, in your own words, to describe the Basil Rathbone Sherlock, the Jeremy Brett Sherlock, and then come to Benedict.
Okay, describe the Basil Rathbone Sherlock, I'll describe the Jeremy Brett Sherlock, and then we'll both describe Benedict.
Okay. Basil Rathbone, at least in cinema terms, I think is the first time they get it absolutely right. He's not exactly like the original Holmes, but he plays Sherlock Holmes with such confidence and such manliness. You never doubt that he's the real thing. One of the great things to avoid in playing Sherlock Holmes is seeming a bit prissy or a bit of a show-off or a bit of a snob. And Rathbone gives him such swagger and such precision that you sort of feel instantly awestruck when he walks in. He also has a beautifully warm relationship with Nigel Bruce's Dr. Watson. You completely believe in the depth and length of that wonderful friendship. He looks right, he sounds great, and he can do Sherlock Holmes' dialogue almost better than anyone. But though the thing that's quite odd about him, I always notice when I watch it, is he's been in America for a long time, so he always says, Watson, Watson.
Watson. Otherwise the Russian one says, Watson. Also, weirdly, Nigel Bruce was slightly taller than him, and it never feels like that. It's weird. You never notice. Jeremy Brett was the most famous Sherlock of our generation, really. In the 1980s, we all grew up with that, and it was a deliberate attempt by Granada Television to do, for the first time, really very faithful versions of the stories. And he's got he's got a really amazing sort of mercurial quality. He said himself that he thought he got he got Sherlock Holmes's sort of manic qualities, but he never quite got the sort of contemplative version where Sherlock would sit on a sofa for 3 days and not talk. But he's got this extraordinary manic energy. He looks amazing, very pale face, and certainly in the first run of stories, because unfortunately he got very ill, he looks like a sort of whip. He's so thin in his waistcoat, and there's that wonderful bit in The Solitary Cyclist when he does that fist fight. I'll never forget that. And he had two wonderful Watsons, David Burke and Edward Hardwicke, who mysteriously, even though they look quite different, you sort of feel it's the same person. And it was the Sherlock Holmes of that generation, and he cast a very long shadow for a very long time. But he's, you know.
I think it's also worth saying.
Sorry, go on.
I think it's also worth saying how innovative Jeremy Brett was at the time.
Yes.
Because everybody after Rathbone had played him like Rathbone.
Yeah.
Then suddenly he was played as this quivering madman. And it was so radical and different, so amazing.
And in fact, really, no one sort of touched it for a long time because of that. It was a definitive portrayal in that way.
Right. And then this, your audacious decision, you are Sherlock.
We drew up a very, very, very long list, which we then totally ignored. It was one of those, it's just what we were talking about, when sometimes there's an actor in the air. I knew Benedict I did a film with him, and Stephen Sue just watched a film called Atonement, in which he's fantastic. We were obviously looking for someone tallish, angular, very distinctive looking, very British, very, 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 very good. And in a way, sort of someone who wasn't quite a star, but could become one. And it just was like, well, that's it. And he came in to read. I read in as Dr. Watson, and after he left, we just went, well, that's it. And it's sometimes it just works like that. And you know, Benedict was very well respected. He did a lot. He just played Stephen Hawking before that, and a lot of wonderful theatre stuff. But it's absolutely true to say that the evening that A Study in Pink went out, he became a star. And it's the sort of thing that's only supposed to happen in Hollywood movies of the 1930s. And it absolutely happened. You know, it's incredible. This is why we can only make them every 900 years. Blame him.
Did you think of that? Did you think of that star? Did he have that magnetism? Because he seems to be, and they'll agree with me, but he seems to be a sexy Sherlock.
Question is, which of Sherlock's mannerisms or looks did Benedict already have? Because he seems to be a sexy Sherlock. Which of Sherlock Holmes's existing attributes did we already see in Benedict?
Oh dear me, I think there is an easy confidence in dealing with people. One of the things that we were very keen on with our Sherlock Holmes, that we think is true of the original but got lost along the way, is that Sherlock Holmes likes being Sherlock Holmes. He's happy in his own skin. He doesn't mind that he's the posh, clever, slightly cold one. He's absolutely fine with that. He's happy. He's a happy man. And I always think Benedict seems to go through life. He's very happy being Benedict Cumberbatch with his funny name and his international success and his bevy of admiring women. Now that I think of it, who wouldn't be happy with that?
There's not a lot to be unhappy about, is there?
I don't think he'd be very good at solving crimes. I think he'd be rubbish at that. I think he'd just wander around and ask for a car and a latte. I think he'd be terrible. But he has that, I think, easy confidence.
Let's pitch it anyway.
What about yourself? You as Mycroft. Where did that come from? I mean, you don't quite have the body for it.
No, thank you very much. It's all right. I've already pitched the spin-off Mycroft series. We could do 12 of those a year because I'm free. Well, no, as we were talking about, the version of Mycroft in our show is directly inspired by the Christopher Lee version in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, in which Billy Wilder and Izzy Diamond, who wrote the screenplay, they sort of took the next logical step, which is sort of what Doyle would have done, which is to make the relationship between the two brothers much edgier, and actually Mycroft's role as the dark government a lot darker. And also, we were looking for equivalences. We thought it would be more fun to have Mycroft paranoid about a weight problem and actually making him very fat, which is why Sherlock continues to jibe him about it, you know. And it was like all the way through you find little things like that. You could, if you know your Sherlock Holmes, you'll know that we know our Sherlock Holmes, and we're sort of playing with a lot of those things there. But yeah, I have no similarities to Mycroft apart from an unbelievable sense of power, an almost supernatural level of intelligence, and a nice bum.
So because you spend so much time building Sherlock up as the most intelligent person conceivable, and then you play someone who's smarter. How does that come about? Is that challenging?
I mean, Mycroft is smarter in the stories. That's easy, isn't it? The good thing is we don't really have to demonstrate it much, apart from if Sherlock makes a deduction, Mycroft makes a slightly cleverer one, and then never has to prove it. It works. No, I mean, if you read the stories, in the Greek Interpreter, the story where we meet Mycroft, Sherlock says, well, I have a brother who's even better at it than me, and Watson can't believe it. He says, no, I'm not being modest. He's much better than me, but he's very, very lazy.
When the series started off, there were a lot of these, spot the Conan Doyle moments throughout the show, from the beginning, from the scratches near the watch to the mobile and all of that. And then as the scale widened and things became more cinematic, those became a little less important, it seemed, to the running of the show, and it became more about a more original story. Was that conscious, or was that just because you had a bigger playground?
Question is, when the show started, there were a lot more original Conan Doyle references, and then as the palette has grown, we've done more original content. Was that a deliberate decision?
I'd say there's still a lot of original stuff from the story in there. There's less of, we've mined all the famous stuff, the Hound, the Woman, the Professor, we've done all that. So a lot of the stuff we're doing now is the lesser known things. I mean, like there's a ton in his last vow that's from the originals, the idea that he gets engaged just to do a housebreak. The final scene at the end is from his last vow. We still do a lot of that stuff, but it's the less famous stuff. And sometimes, to be honest, I think the more interesting stuff. So it might seem as though we're pulling back from Doyle, but we never really do.
I agree. I mean, we twice in the last season, I reread a wonderful story called The Case of Identity, which is a very sweet story. You couldn't really, lots of Case of Identity fans here.
A Case of Identity screen. When was that going to happen?
It's a very sweet story, but you can't really dramatize it because it's too obvious. But it's got some little nuggets in it. One of which was the idea of a female client oscillating on the pavement. And Sherlock says, oh, I know those symptoms. Oscillation on the pavement always means a love affair. And it's lovely. And a couple of things like that. They're just like beautiful pieces of writing by Doyle that you can drop in or sprinkle in. So as Stephen says, I mean, some of the most famous stuff that we've done, but there's hundreds of other things which are much less familiar. You're right. What did you say?
Hello. Sorry, I'm just talking to the wife. My other wife.
Steve, that's a darling.
Say hello to Sue. She's in a dressing gown. She's just going to poke her head in. But there we are. No, you're not. You're not a picture there. Look. Oh, look. There she is.
Hello.
Right. It's a huge deal because that's Steve and Sue from Dublin.
She's gone now. She's not got the makeup on and she's only wearing a dressing gown. So there you go.
It's still early.
exclusive.
It's early, yeah.
No, I meant about plotting, really. The plots seem to be very closely hewn to a single story in the beginning.
Well, no, it's we do both. We always do both. You know, if you look at the Empty Hearse is only very sort of tangentially based on the Empty House, but his Last Vow, it follows the beats of Charles Augustus Milverton quite closely. So sometimes we sort of take a story and explode it and put other things within it, and other times it's just like the jumping off point, really.
Okay. About the death of Sherlock, the killing, was that crazy? When you killed him, did you know how you were going to bring him back?
Question is, when we killed Sherlock, did we know how we were going to bring him back? When we killed Sherlock, did we know how we were going to bring him back?
Yes. I mean, if you look at the Writing Back Fall, the one really obvious thing is John can't see the point of impact on the pavement. It's obscured from him. Now, with our extensive research into medicine and science, we discovered that the only bad thing about falling off a building is when you hit the pavement. I thought that it was fairly obvious that he fell on a giant blue cushion.
Correct. It's strange though, a lot of people have asked me in the last few days when we're going to explain how Sherlock survived. I said, we did that, but weirdly no one seems to believe our solution.
The round version was better.
And I patiently explained.
And the pavement. There's no other way of doing that.
It's a perfectly satisfactory explanation, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Unless you prefer the one with Moriarty.
Why not?
He's not telling you that. He's not telling you that. You're asking about Moriarty.
Yes, we did know, and that's. But he's well known to be indestructible.
Were you surprised by the theories and the obsession on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of prepared for something, but for it to be a worldwide talking point for 2 years was unbelievable. And some of the theories were fantastic. We watched one on YouTube, which was like an open university lecture with little model cars. And it was fantastic. So yeah, it was thrilling. And in a way, we had a sort of small version of what happened to Conan Doyle when he killed him off in the 1890s, and no one attacked us in the street. They came.
You showed him at the end. You played it safe.
No, we let him be. He was dead for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
I just kept saying he's a ghost. It's obvious he's a ghost. Maybe he still is. Has anyone thought of that?
Okay. Two last questions, and then I open
That's
it up.
not very popular, Steve.
2 last questions, and then I open up.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you guys think of the American show Elementary, where they've turned Watson into a girl, and where Irene Adler is Moriarty?
Well, I can speak for both of us. We've genuinely not seen that show.
But you know what they've done.
I know what they've
And
done.
they've turned Irene Adler into Moriarty.
I didn't know that. No. They're racing through things quicker than we do.
I can't hear, sorry.
We haven't seen Elementary, and it's on record why we haven't, so we better leave that.
Okay. So coming to your Irene Adler,
Yes.
what made you make her a dominatrix? What was that?
Stephen. What made us make Irene Adler a dominatrix? Bear in mind it's early on a Sunday morning.
Yes, okay. She's referred to as an opera singer and an adventuress in the original, which, if you know the language and tradition of the time, meant she was a very bad lady. She was very naughty. She was, but you wanted her to be something quite powerful, so sexy and powerful, dominatrix. Obviously, Sherlock Holmes being a posh English man, a woman alternating between leather and nudity would reduce him to his knees quite quickly. So just that, and it was a fun, exciting thing to do. It looked great, and
It did look great, yeah.
Raja. The other thing, I was saying the other day about this, the brilliant thing about that relationship is that, you know, if I if you can imagine such a thing, it's actually more interesting than sex, isn't it? They sort of fall for each other on a higher plane, a sort of intellectual battle, which sort of Sherlock is not expecting it, but it happens. And so whatever goes on in their life together, it's sort of bigger than just an obvious thing like falling in love.
I mean, I think the interesting thing for those two is that they are both in their different ways quite indifferent about sex. Irene Adler uses it to get what she wants. Sherlock Holmes ignores it to get what he wants. Neither of them are exactly gagging for it. They are fascinated by each other, but if they ever do sneak off together for a night, I think they probably rob a bank or steal horses. I don't think they do anything as boring as cuddle on the sofa. That's for us ordinary mortals.
Series 5.
Questions, anyone?
Okay, yes I do. I'm going to go for... Gentleman with the spectacles there, looks like Armando Iannucci. You can't see him.
I've got an image.
Yes, you there.
If Conan Doyle were to be resurrected like Lazarus, what would be the one question? What would be the one question that both of you were to ask him?
That's good. Oh no, he's gone! Oh no.
That answers the question for you.
I'll do an impersonation of Steve. I'll answer my version. If Conan Doyle were to be resurrected, what's one question we would ask him? Well, what's it like being dead? I always wonder that when mediums, i.e. frauds, pretend to get in touch with the dead, and they always ask the most banal questions. They never say, "What's it like? What's it like? Where are you? Describe it." It's always he's looking down on you. He says, "You're very happy. I want to know what it's like to be dead." Not very nice, I imagine.
Fair enough.
I can't speak to Steve, he's gone.
Next.
Next. Someone over here. Is there a microphone here? Yes. Lady there with the tattoo on her head.
Who's your favorite doctor and your favorite companion?
It's very dangerous to choose. I love all the doctors, but my doctor is John Pertwee, so he remains my favorite. For all the reasons of my childhood.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
So
Can I
him
be seen?
and
I can't tell.
Joe Grant. We can hear you. The question was, if Conan Doyle were to be resurrected, what would your question to him be?
If I could meet, sorry, who am I asking?
Conan Doyle.
Do you really believe in fairies, I think? But, I think I would like to ask, because he was always adamant that he really intended to kill off Sherlock Holmes, and yet he wrote a mystery story that depends on Sherlock's body not being able to be recovered from a river, and which relies on Dr. Watson having correctly deduced his death. So I would like to say, were you serious? Did you really mean it? Didn't you know perfectly well you were bringing him back, you fraud?
I'd like to.
I love him, and then I would just ask him lots of fanboy questions.
Then I just cuddle him. Yes.
Yeah.
Next question.
Two more questions.
Two more. Oh my goodness. Someone over here. Lady.
I don't know why it isn't. I'll try again. Any better?
Yes. Hello. Here we go.
Hello, can we have an insight into John Locke?
Can we have what?
John Locke, John and Sherlock.
John Locke. Well, John Locke was a brilliant philosopher. I would advise everyone to read his work. He's very intellectually stimulated. Also, the name of a character in Lost, played by Terry O'Quinn. So that's what I would do. Stephen?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah. Philosophy. Everyone should read philosophy. So yes, thank you. Gentleman with the fez. A lot of fezzes here. Hello.
Hello, I'm a huge
No, you're not a
fan.
gentleman.
He was holding it for me.
Ah.
Thank you. Anyway, can you please talk about the female master in Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah. Stephen,
And the Christmas special.
tell us about the female master, Michelle Gomez.
Well, Michelle Gomez is an actress I've known for many years. I'm married to Jack Davenport, who I used to work with on Coupling. And I don't know, I couldn't think what, I mean, I knew I'd have to do a master story eventually, because that's just one of the boxes you have to tick. And I couldn't really think of anything interesting. And then I thought, well, what if we, having raised the question of the female doctor, actually do the female master? When no one's looking, when everyone's looking the wrong way, we do that. And then I didn't have much of an idea about what to do with that character until I happened to see Michelle Gomez's name on the list for another part. And I thought, oh my God, she's perfect, she'd be amazing as that. I just thought she'd be incredible. But we'd already offered her this other part, which she had to turn down because she was unavailable. And she wrote to me saying, look, if there's anything else for us, for our razor, she said, a razor cheekbone villainess, I'm there. And I said, well, actually, yes, there's this. And it's one of the very few times I've been so adamant about anything. I just said, we're not even bothering talking about anyone else, but just casting Michelle. And she was, I thought, phenomenal. I thought she devoured that screen.
She's wonderful. Do you think we could ever have a 5 masters?
A 5 masters?
Yeah. They're all
They
around.
wouldn't talk much.
There's loads of them around. There's loads of them now.
One last question.
One last question.
One last question.
Oh, who gets the golden ticket? Oh, yes, gentlemen they. Who shouted the loudest?
Hi Mark, hi.
Hello.
I'm representing Team Cabbage. Thanks a lot for coming to India. My question is, we've had a lot of talk about female doctor. Can you just throw some light on that, please? The female doctor coming up probably after Capaldi or something like that, since you already have a female master right now.
Yeah.
So,
What do we think? Well, I think, personally, one day a female doctor would be a wonderful thing. I personally no objection at all. I hope Peter is the doctor forever. But I would love to see a female doctor one day. Stephen?
Well, the groundwork's there. We've established that it can happen. We've established that the doctor doesn't react at all to the fact that the master is female. Never said anything about it. We have to assume this is just a thing that can happen. We've seen what it's like with a river song and with Clara having the sonic screwdriver. I think we're prepared. We've readied the audience for it. But do you know what? And this is a really important thing to say. There is no vacancy. There is no vacancy.
Correct, there's no vacancy.
Peter is in the role. Stop treating him like he's temporary. Because I don't think he's going to be very temporary at all. I don't think that man's getting up the job.
Brilliant. Are we done? That's it. Thank you, Stephen.
We're gonna do a picture. We're gonna try and get everyone in the picture together.
So we're going to have one proud selfie with Mr. Mark Gatiss. And yeah, you can wave your hands to Stephen in the back. So, once again, a huge round of applause for Mr. Mark Gatiss. Who has a song? A Stephen Moffat. Who joined you here? Thank you, Mr. Raja. Very interesting session. Mr. Gatiss, thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. Interesting. Elementary, my dear Watson.